Jack. Thank you, Jack. And Joy, I was just thinking here, watching those two wonderfully nimble comedians, and they've lasted all these years because they're nice people. And here at our panel on this stage, we have a group of nice people who've lasted down through the years because they are exceptionally nice people. Now, Norman Brokenshire, I'm going to put the first question to you. When you first came down from Ontario and you became a contemporary of Graham McNamee and J. Andrew White and Phil Cowan and the rest of them, did anything ever interrupt that how do you do, ladies and gentlemen, how do you do?
Why, Ed, there was nothing but interruptions. But I think I know what you mean. In those days, commercials, of course, were even as important as they are today on television. And I can't help but think of another Ed. Eddie Cantor hadn't done so well on his first series. And in the second series, they gave him me as a straight man to see whether that would work better. Everything worked so splendidly the first show that he was so elated. You know, an artist knows whether or not he's been a success. He was so elated that he recovered his chewing gum, which he'd stuck on the wall, and chewing fervently and doing a little act for the small audience we had, he danced around and around, and while I was doing the commercial, there was only one commercial on this hour show, 2 full pages. While I was worrying through that, plus the theme song, he popped up piggyback on my shoulder and chewed the gum in my left ear. Try that over television sometime.
Now, David Ross, I was talking there with HV, and we agree that you probably have won more awards for diction than any announcer in the business. Year after year you won them, but it ended, I suppose, then that automatically ensured that you never pulled a fluff on radio. Is that true?
I think you're absolutely wrong. Thanks for the compliment. I think you're very generous, but I can assure you, Ed, that I've made my quota of boners, or fluffs, as we call them.
Clinkers.
Clinkers. I like to recall the time when I was announcing that South American troubadour, Tito Guizar, and his guitar, as he was always billed. Well, one day I got into the studio, and I said, ladies and gentlemen, we now present Tito Guitar and his Guizar.
Well, Milton is Milton Cross. We're now getting into the field of music here. Well, what about you? Your experiences?
Well, I've made my boo-boos, too, as they call them. I recall in the early days when I was handling a program for A&P, I had to open the program every night by saying, ladies and gentlemen, these are the A&P Gypsies. And one night I boldly stepped to the microphone and said, ladies and gentlemen, these are the A&G Pipsies.
Now, sitting here with me, next to me, is the Dean of Commentators, H.V. Kaltenborn. Now, Mr. Kaltenborn, going back to the years, is there some incident that you could pick out as memorable?
Well, I could pick out the incident of the occasion on which the President of the United States imitated a mere commentator. And that was in 1948. That was the election in which I made a wrong prediction. And Harry Truman happened to listen to it, and I'd better tell you just the way he told it to the banquet audience of the Electoral College in January as they were celebrating the Truman, not the Dewey, victory. He said, I went to bed at 6:30 after having had a glass of buttermilk and a sandwich, and I woke up about midnight, and the radio was on to the National Broadcasting Company. And there was Mr. Kaltenborn telling about the results. And Mr. Kaltenborn said, while Mr. Truman is 1,000,000 votes ahead, when the country vote comes in, it will be found that Mr. Truman has been defeated by an overwhelming majority. And that was put not only on the radio, but it was put on the newsreels, and I've never heard the end of it. So that was one mistake which I will never forget.
Well, you know, Lowell Thomas was supposed to be here with us tonight with Ben Gross, but he couldn't make it, but he sent along a radio tape, and I'm quite sure that you'll all remember the night that Lowell Thomas almost laughed himself right out of radio.
So Harris, the band leader, she explains that working so hard all day in the film studio, she is sometimes not in such perfectly good humor. And she snaps at hubby, which is all wrong. To which I say, you're all for us. I'll leave the rest of it to you.
Well, that was Lowell Thomas. Now, here are these distinguished veterans here, pioneers in the business. Norman, before I forget, I want to congratulate you on your New Year 5-year contract for your own show on NBC. And I know to all of them you want to extend your appreciation of this visit tonight. How about a very big hand for all of them? Thank you very much. And now let's whip back to the West Coast and famous Harry Von Zell.
Thank you very much, Ed. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. When it comes to boo-booing, I am not unsullied. I'd like an opportunity to tell about it because I've never seen it printed quite as it happened. They usually have me introducing the President of the United States, at that time Herbert Hoover. I was not introducing him. It was even worse. I was delivering a 6-minute-long eulogy, which had been prepared by the combined talents of some of the finest writers of that day. It opened a full evening of broadcasting, which CBS was sending out not only to this country, but by shortwave to all the world. And in glowing terms, I went through this thing very proud of the opportunity afforded a young announcer early in his career. And in classic phrases, I spoke of Herbert Hoover the boy, Herbert Hoover the young man in college, Herbert Hoover, successful businessman, husband, and father, Herbert Hoover, world humanitarian and great American statesman, and finally down to the last glowing paragraph, which went something like this. And so it is our fervent hope that by this tribute, carrying with it a message of love and devotion and respect not only of your people, but the people of all the world, we may in some measure add to your happiness on this, your birthday. And so this salute to you, beloved President of the United States, Heaver Herbert. I'm not proud of it. But that was my early contribution to the history of a great industry. It had to be great to survive. An industry made greater by the talents of wonderful people, many of whom are here in the audience. I want to introduce just a few of them now, and then later we'll come back and introduce more of them. Here is a man the world will never cease to laugh at. One of the great funny men of all the great funny men of the world, the one and only Ed Wynn. Would you stand up and hold the mic? Here is a fellow who contributed so much to the popularity of the audience participation program in radio and now on television. He's participating in our audience tonight. Art Linkletter, will you take it back? Right over here, a man who came out of Arkansas, the best goodwill ambassador they ever had, the king of the bazooka, Bob Burns. I think probably one of the most lovable characters created in the history of radio was the kindly and good Dr. Christian, here personified in real life by Gene Hersholt. Mr. Hersholt. Here's a man who's a great showman, a great comedian, a great MC, and now star of a fine new series, Ken Murray. Where are you, Ken? Right here. Now, these next two people I've asked to step up here on the stage because no tribute to radio would be complete without them. This man brought to radio a technique that formerly was thought to be strictly for the stage, and in so doing created one of radio's most cantankerous and lovable characters. I give you Charlie McCarthy and his boss, Edgar Burke.
Nice of Ed Sullivan to invite us to appear on his salute to radio.
Yes, he is. He's a doll-type fellow.
I think he is.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you realize, Charlie, we've been on radio for 17 years?
Yeah, 5 times.
It certainly does. 17 years I've tried to teach you right from wrong.
Yeah.
Yes. I've sort of dedicated my life to bringing you up.
You've been terribly kind.
Yes. And it paid so well, too, yeah. But the trouble you gave me, Charlie, remember the time that you stole a police patrol wagon and you hid it in my garage?
Yeah. Very few people can boast of having a hot patrol wagon.
Yeah. And then that school incident.
You mean when I threw the skunk in a ventilating system?
Yes. That was a mess.
Yeah, it created quite a stink.
Yes, it's... But the friends we have, the memories.
Yeah.
Yes. There's Don Amici, Nelson Eddy, Dottie L'Amour, and, of course, W.C. Fields.
Wasn't he nice?
Yes.
He was the softest hard-boiled egg in the world.
Wasn't he?
Remember when I said to him, Mr. Fields, is that your nose or are you eating a tomato?
And he said, quiet, you woodpecker's pin-up boy, or I'll slice you into a Venetian blind.
Yeah. Oh, the thought of it made me shudder.
Yeah. But of course, remember when you almost married Marilyn Monroe?
Yeah.
Yes. And then that clever impersonator, Mr. Barry, made like Winston Churchill, and he said, this is America's darkest hour.
Yeah.
If Charles McCarthy insists on marrying Miss Monroe, never before has one so little taken so much from so many.
Oh, that girl, how she loved me.
Yes. But she married DiMaggio.
Yes. Well, if she'd only told me she wanted an outfielder, I would have played ball with her.
Yeah. You know, Charlie, that, I think, has really been your trouble all through life, spending too much time thinking about girls.
Yeah.
Too much time with the girls, and not enough time with Aristotle.
I don't even know him.
Oh, you don't say that.
All right, I know him. He's a buddy.
That makes me happy.
Yes. I miss the boy. We're intimate friends.
Yes. You haven't seen him lately, this Aristotle?
Not lately, no. Can't I miss him?
Yes.
Miss that boy?
Yes. Well, he's been dead for around 2,000 years.
Dead?
Dead, yes.
2,000 years?
2,000 years.
Well, he didn't look well the last time I saw him.
Charlie, you know, we're on the air doing our radio show in 30 minutes, so don't you think we should say something nice to Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah, let's steal his audience. Everybody tune in on CBS and radio in 30 minutes.
All right.